So what happens to Tuunbaq in the book?
I don't remember that Tuunbaq dies. The book ends with does it end with the fire? Does it end with Crozier setting the ships on fire?
The lucifer matches were where he had left them in the drawer of his desk 3 years earlier. For a second he was sure that he could hear the bunk creak and the nest of frozen blankets stir as the mummified thing behind him reached for him. He could hear the dry tendons in the dead arm stretching and snapping as the brown hand with its long brown fingers and 2 long yellow nails slowly rose. Crozier did not turn to look. He did not run. He did not look back. Carrying the matches, he left his cabin slowly, stepping over the lines of black gunpowder and deckboard stained by the whale oil. He had to go down the main ladder to throw the first match. The air was so bad here that the match almost refused to light. Then the gunpowder lit with a whoomp, ignited a bulkhead he'd soaked with oil, and raced forward and aft in the dark along its own trail of fire. Knowing that the orlop deck fire alone would have been enough, these timbers were dried to tinder after 6 years in this Arctic desert, he still took time to light the lines of powder on the lower deck and open upper deck. Then he jumped the 10 feet to the ramp of ice on the west side of the ship, and cursed as his never fully recovered left leg announced its pain. He should have clambered down the rigged rope ladders here, as Silence obviously had had the sense to do. Limping, like the old man he was sure he would soon be, Crozier walked out onto the ice to join the others. The ship burned for almost an hour and a half before it sank. It was an incredible conflagration. He knew that he did not want rescuers from British ships pouring over the abandoned ship, carrying tales of it home to frighten the ghoulish citizens of England, and to spur Mr. Dickens or Mr. Tennyson on to new heights of maudlin eloquence. He also knew that it wouldn't have been only tales these rescuers would have brought back to England with them. Whatever had taken possession of the ship was as virulent as the plague. He had seen that with the eyes of his soul and smelled it with all his human and Siksam Yewa senses.
I think it does.
He goes back to the ships and set them on fire?
He does. He finds his way back to the ship. He lives with Lady Silence. And Lady Silence actually shares with Crozier it's like she has second sight. She can share visions with him. And she shows him the goddess that created Tuunbaq.
Then there came a time, many thousands of years ago, when Sedna, the spirit of the sea, became infuriated with her fellow spirits, the spirit of the air and the spirit of the moon. To kill them, these other 2 parts of the trinity that made up the basic forces of the universe, Sedna created her own Tupilek. This spirit-animated killing machine was so terrible that it had its own name soul, and became a thing called Tuunbaq. The Tuunbaq was able to move freely between the spirit world and the earth world of human beings, and it could take any shape it chose. Any form it took was so terrible that even a pure spirit could not look upon it directly without going mad. Its power, concentrated by Sedna only on the goals of wreaking havoc and death, was pure terror itself. On top of that, Sedna had granted her Tuunbaq the power of commanding the Ixit Kussikjuk, the innumerable smaller evil spirits abroad. By itself, one-on-one, the Tuunbaq could have killed either the spirit of the moon or Sila, the spirit of the air. But the Tuunbaq, while terrible in every aspect, was not as stealthy as the tinier Tupilek. Sila, the spirit of the air, whose energy fills the universe, sensed its murderous presence as it stalked her through the spirit world. Knowing that she could be destroyed by the Tuunbaq, and also knowing that if she was destroyed, the universe would be thrown down into chaos again, Sila called on the spirit of the moon to help her defeat the creature. The spirit of the moon was not interested in helping her, nor was he concerned about the fate of the universe. Sela then beseeched Narjuk, the spirit of consciousness, and one of the oldest Inuit deep spirits, who, like Sela, had appeared when the chaos of the cosmos had been separated from the thin but growing living green reed of order so very long ago, to help her. Narjuk agreed. Together, in a battle that lasted for 10,000 years, and which left craters and rents and vacuums in the fabric of the spirit world itself, Sela and Narjuk defeated the terrible Tuunbaq's attack. As all Tupiaq who have failed in their assassination assignments are destined to do, the Tuunbaq then turned back to destroy its creator, Sedna. But Sedna, who had learned all of her lessons the hard way since even before her father had betrayed her so long ago, had understood the danger the Tuunbaq posed to her even before she created it. So now she activated a secret weakness she had built into the Tuunbaq, chanting her own spirit world Irinalutit incantations. Instantly the Tuunbaq was banished to the surface of the earth, never able to return to the spirit world, nor to the deep bottom of the sea, nor to hold pure spirit form in either place. Sedna was safe. The earth and all its denizens, on the other hand, were no longer safe. Sedna had banished the Tuunbaq to the coldest, emptiest part of the crowded earth, the perpetually frozen region near the North Pole. She chose the far north rather than other distant frozen areas, because only the north, the center of the earth to the many Inuit gods, had shamans there with any history of dealing with angry evil spirits. The Tuunbaq, deprived of its monstrous spirit form, but still monstrous in essence, soon changed form, as all Tupiaq do, into the most terrible living thing it could find on earth. It chose the shape and substance of the smartest, stealthiest, most deadly predator on earth, the white northern bear, but was to the bear in size and cunning as a bear itself is to one of the dogs of the real people. The Tuunbaq killed and ate the ferocious white bears, devouring their souls, as easily as the real people hunted ptarmigan. The more complicated the Inuit soul of a living thing is, the more delicious it is to a soul predator. The Tuunbaq soon learned that it enjoyed eating men more than eating Nanuk, the bears, enjoyed eating man-souls more than it enjoyed eating walrus souls, and enjoyed eating men more even than it enjoyed devouring the large, gentle, and intelligent Inuit souls of the orca. For generations, the Tuunbaq gorged itself on human beings. Large parts of the snowy north that once were thick with villages, areas of the sea that once saw fleets of kayaks, and sheltered places that had heard the laughter of thousands of the real people, were soon abandoned as human beings fled south. But there was no fleeing the Tuunbaq. Sedna's ultimate Tupiaq could outswim, outrun, outthink, outstalk, and outfight any human being alive. It commanded the Ixitkusikchuk bad spirits to move the glaciers farther south, making the glaciers themselves follow the human beings who'd fled into green lands, so that the white-furred Tuunbaq would be comfortable and concealed in the cold as it continued to eat human souls. Hundreds of hunters were sent out from the real people villages to kill the thing, and none of the men returned alive. Sometimes the Tuunbaq would taunt the families of the dead hunters by returning parts of their bodies, sometimes leaving the heads and legs and arms and torsos of several hunters all mixed together, so that the families could not even carry out the proper burial ceremonies. Sedna's monster soul-eater looked as if it might eat all the human being souls on earth. But, as Sedna had hoped, the shamans of the hundreds of groups of the real people huddled around the periphery of the cold north, sent verbal messages, then met in Angakquit shaman enclaves and talked, prayed to all their friendly spirits, conferred with their helping spirits, and eventually came up with a plan to deal with the Tuunbaq. They could not kill this god that walked like a man. Even Sela, the spirit of the air, and Sedna, the spirit of the sea, could not kill the Talipek Tuunbaq. But they could contain it. They could keep it from coming south and killing all of the human beings and all of the real people. The best of the best shamans, the Angakquit, chose the best men and women among them with shamanic abilities of clairvoyant thought-hearing and thought-sending, and they bred these best men with the best women the way the real people today breed sledge dogs to create an even better, stronger, smarter generation. They called these beyond shamanic clairvoyant children the Siksam Yewa, or spirit governors of the sky, and sent them north with their families to stop the Tuunbaq from slaughtering the real people. These Siksam Yewa were able to communicate directly with the Tuunbaq, not through the language of the Tuungait helping spirits as the mere shaman had attempted, but by directly touching the Tuunbaq's mind and life-soul. The spirit governors of the sky learned to summon Tuunbaq with their throat-singing. Devoting themselves to communicating with the Tuunbaq, they agreed to allow the jealous and monstrous creature to deprive them of their ability to speak to their fellow human beings. In exchange for the Tupilek killing creature no longer preying on human souls, the spirit governors of the sky promised the god who walks like a man that they, the human beings and real people, would no longer make their dwelling places in its northernmost snowy domain. They promised the god who walks like a man that they would honor it by never fishing or hunting within its kingdom without the monster creature's permission. They promised that all future generations would help feed the god who walks like a man's voracious appetite, the Siksam Yewa and other real people catching and bringing fish, walruses, seals, caribou, hares, whales, wolves, and even the Tuunbaq's smaller cousins, the white bears, for it to feast on. They promised that no human being's kayak or boat would trespass on the god who walks like a man's sea domain, unless it was to bring food, or to sing the throat songs that soothed the beast, or to pay homage to the killing thing. The Siksam Yewa knew through their forward thoughts that when the Tuunbaq's domain was finally invaded by the Pale People, the Kabluna, it would be the beginning of the end of times. Poisoned by the Kabluna's pale souls, the Tuunbaq would sicken and die. The real people would forget their ways and their language. Their homes would be filled with drunkenness and despair. Men would forget their kindness and beat their wives. The Inwa of the children would become confused, and the real people would lose their good dreams.
And why the goddess created Tuunbaq, and why it's such a nasty spirit, and why this goddess vanquished him to the Arctic freezing regions, and how the Eskimo people basically came up with this placating thing that they did with Tuunbaq to say, okay, because at first Tuunbaq was killing all of them. And so in order to appease him, they came up with the shaman idea, which is something we actually didn't talk about before. But remember, when Lady Silence goes back in episode 9, they say they're going to call another shaman forward, right, because she failed. That's actually kind of interesting. That was an interesting twist that is just in the TV show.